Hello everyone, welcome to the most important video I've ever made. In this video, the time has come for me to talk about something that is extremely important to me, that I'm very passionate about, and I'm very knowledgeable about. It is veganism. You can already hear people clicking off, running away. No, I don't want to hear about that. No, I'm not interested. Don't tell me what to eat. I don't want to know. No, I tried that. It didn't work. No, I can already hear it now. I challenge you to open your mind, maybe your heart, and to listen to this entire video. I think it's going to be a long one. You can listen to it in breaks. You don't have to listen to it all in one session. You can take breaks and come back. But all I ask of you, I ask this one thing of all of you, to refrain from writing something in the comments against veganism before listening to the entire video. So in the first part of the video, I'm going to be giving an introduction about what is veganism, why are we vegan, some basic information that I think everyone needs to know. And then in the second part of the video, I'm going to be responding to a lot of the most common arguments against veganism, which are really based on misinformation, or lack of information. I am a vegan activist. This is something that I've studied extensively, and I have an answer for all of those questions, all of those concerns, all of those things that you've heard that are not true, all of those arguments and responses that you have. So that will be addressed in the second part of the video. If you comment something about something that I talked about in the video that I responded to, I will just reply, watch the whole video. All right? Got it? All right. So let's start with what is veganism. So veganism is an ethical stance or position against the exploitation of animals. It is a rejection of animal exploitation. And to go a bit deeper, it's rejecting the objectification of sentient beings. What are sentient beings? Sentient beings are animals, basically organisms like you and me who have a brain and a complex nervous system. We have the capacity to feel. We have emotions. We feel pain. Animals are sentient beings, as opposed to plants who are not sentient beings. Plants don't have brains. They don't have nervous systems. It is a simple biological fact that any scientist can confirm to you that plants do not have the capacity to feel. They are alive and they respond to stimulus. They respond to stimuli like mushrooms, which are in their own category, not plants or animals. You can think of plants and mushrooms kind of like robots. They're kind of like programmed biologically to do certain things, so they can move and they can communicate and send signals to each other. But just like robots, they lack that capacity to feel that animals have. So veganism is about rejecting the objectification of these sentient beings. Maybe you have a dog or a cat. Would you say that your dog or your cat is a someone or a something? If you think they are a something, then you are objectifying them. If you think they're a someone, then you're not. If you think your dog or cat has the right to not be killed unnecessarily, if you think that they have some basic rights, then you're not objectifying them. The animals that are exploited for food are being objectified. Vegans are also against speciesism. Speciesism is like racism or sexism. It's where you think that some species deserve certain rights, some species deserve to not be objectified, and other species, well, it's okay if we objectify them. We can do whatever we want to them. There are resources. They are here for us. We own them. We can do whatever we want to them. That is speciesism. So just like how in the past, maybe it was more acceptable in society to be sexist or to be racist. The current paradigm is that it is still very acceptable to be speciesist, but that is what vegans are trying to change. Are you following? Are you understanding? This is also one of my more advanced topics that I've made, videos. One of the most advanced videos that I've made. The pace, the speed is relatively relaxed. I want you guys to understand, but this is a little bit of an advanced topic. So I will be using some terms, some words, and talking about things that might be a little hard for some people to understand. That's okay. You might have to look up some words. You might have to go back and turn on the subtitles, the captions. That's okay. I want you to understand what I'm saying. That is my goal. And you can also learn some things. So this is for improving your English and for improving yourself, for learning knowledge about life. So veganism is often misunderstood as being a diet. Veganism is not a diet. Veganism is much larger than that. Vegans also don't buy clothes that come from animals. We try to avoid as much as practically possible all the products and all the things that come from animals that are of animal origin. We try to avoid consuming these things. So it's not just food, it could be anything. Veganism is really a state of mind. It is a philosophy of life. For us, it is just basic respect. Some of us vegans have never really even been animal lovers. We just understand that it's basic respect to leave them alone and to not exploit them, and also not breed them into existence to be exploited. But in this video, I'm going to be focusing more on the diet aspect of veganism, because that's really the biggest issue we're focused on. That is the issue that has the biggest impact. But normally we refer to that as a plant-based diet and not as veganism, because veganism is much more than a diet, as I said. Often when people said that they were vegan and they stopped, it's not that they were really vegan, it's that they ate a plant-based diet and then they stopped eating a plant-based diet. If you're truly vegan, it's kind of almost impossible. Like, it's a little bit crazy to stop being vegan, because imagine you have a dog. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But imagine you have a dog, you love your dog, or whatever, you respect your dog. You know, you don't want to hurt your dog. And you're not in a survival situation. You watch videos on YouTube, and one day you decide to kill your dog, maybe shoot your dog in the head or slit their throat with a knife. However, and you decide to make a sandwich with the meat from your dog. So if that seems crazy to you, if that seems absurd, unfathomable, something that you would never do, that is how true vegans feel about the other animals, about consuming things from the other animals. So true vegans, when we see things like meat and milk and animal products, we see slaughterhouses. We see killing your dog for a sandwich. Horror movies, like, that is what we see. We don't see it as food. We see it as hell. Now, I've only been vegan for 8 years. Prior to being vegan, prior to making the connection, I was very desensitized by society, by the world, by life. I lacked empathy. I was disconnected. Most of us don't want to hurt animals, but we are disconnected from what we're really doing, from the impact that we're having. So becoming vegan is really about realizing this and becoming connected to the truth, becoming connected to living in alignment with your values, to connecting with the victims, seeing the victims. Veganism is about the animals. It's about the victims. There are other benefits to being vegan, or specifically to eating a plant-based diet. There are massive environmental benefits and health benefits, but that's actually not what veganism is about. Veganism is about the animals. For me personally, I like to think about it as stepping outside of the ego and realizing that I don't have the right to take from this other sentient being. I simply don't have the right to do that. All that being said, I do want to talk about the 3 pillars, I guess, the animals, the environment, and health. I do want to talk about all of those things because they are important to know about as well. So now I'm going to give you some simple information about those 3 pillars, those 3 categories. And then after that, we can get into debunking the common arguments against veganism. All right, so starting with the animals. So 99% of the animal products that are consumed. So this is all the food that has animal origin. So we're talking about animal flesh, meat, which includes fish, marine life, all of that, land animals, sea animals, dairy, so milk, cheese, all these things that come from cows, goats. This includes eggs, which come from chickens. It even includes honey, which comes from exploited bees in many cases. These are animal products. So when I talk about animal products, that's what I'm referring to. In this video, I'm focusing on the food products. So 99% of animal products come from factory farming. So if you're going to the store and buying food, if you're going to a restaurant, most people are supporting factory farming. These animals go through slaughterhouses. Slaughterhouses are worse than a horror movie. They make a horror movie look like silly. Just some information. Pigs are put into gas chambers with levels of CO2 that are so high that they not only suffocate the pigs, but all of the soft tissue of the pigs is burned. So pigs are basically burned from the inside out. They are screaming, thrashing, they are being tortured. That is how they die. Those that are not killed that way or who don't die in that process have their throats slit. But the gas chambers, that's standard practice in United States, Europe, Australia, a lot of major countries. When pigs are small, they have their teeth ripped out, they have their tails cut off. They spend their whole life in these tiny crates, unable to move, and the list goes on. Dairy cows are forcibly impregnated. So the farmer sticks his arm into the cow from behind and impregnates her with bull semen. How do you think he got that? So this cow is violated. Then she carries her baby for 9 months, like us, and then she gives birth to her baby, and then the baby is immediately taken away. The mother cow cries sometimes for a week or more, maybe for a month. This entire process is done so that humans can exploit her for her milk, which is really breast milk for her baby calf, for her baby. Adult humans have no biological need to consume breast milk. That is what dairy is. It is breast milk. It's even more absurd when you realize that that is breast milk from another species. So we have humans who are not even babies anymore consuming breast milk from another species. And in order to get that totally non-essential food item, they are violating cows and separating their babies from them. And then when the dairy cow is no longer producing milk, she's no longer useful, she is sent to the slaughterhouse. And the list goes on with cows that are bred, raised, and killed for meat, chickens, etc. In the egg industry, the male chicks, the male baby chicks, are not useful. So they are macerated. So they go down a conveyor belt and then they fall into something that, imagine if you have a baby chick and you put it into a blender and you turn it on. That's what happens to baby male chicks in the egg industry. So I could go on and on about this topic. It is horrible. If you've never seen slaughterhouse footage, you have to. You have to see videos like Dominion. You can Google Watch Dominion. It's a documentary. There are other documentaries as well about what happens in slaughterhouses. It is very difficult to watch, but it is important to know about this. It is important to confront the reality of this. And I can already hear people saying, well, what about humane farms? What about humane, small, family-run, organic, we treat our animals nice kinds of farms? The truth is that regardless of if they come from a small, family-run, we treat our animals nice farm or not, they are killed at a fraction of their lifespan, a small fraction of their lifespan. And depending on the farm, many are sent to slaughterhouses. But regardless of how they are slaughtered, the issue is not in the how, it's in the simple act of being unnecessarily slaughtered. Because imagine this. Imagine you give your dog a great life. You give your dog a great life for a few years, and then one day you decide to hang your dog upside down and slit its throat, or put a gun to its head and shoot it. Him, her. I don't like to say it because it's not an object, but If you think that killing your dog for a sandwich is justified because you gave your dog a good life, well, isn't that the ultimate betrayal? Isn't that almost worse than if the dog had a bad life and you were putting them out of their misery? You were ending their misery. Isn't giving someone a good life just to be secretly planning to kill them the whole time almost worse? There is no such thing as humane slaughter. This is an oxymoron. This is when you have two words together that you cannot put them together. It doesn't make sense. Humane means compassionate, benevolent. But you have to ask yourself, how do you compassionately kill someone, murder someone who doesn't want to die or need to die? And then this brings us back to the psychology of the objectification of sentient beings. So the root problem is viewing these sentient beings as resources for you to do whatever you want with. So as long as you view them as resources to do whatever you want with, as long as you are objectifying them, it doesn't matter if you massaged them, sang songs to them. If it wouldn't be justified, if they were a dog, cat, whatever, an elephant, some other animal that you care about, a chimpanzee, then why would it be justified if it were a cow, a pig, a chicken? Speciesism often comes from culture. So people are raised and culturally taught or programmed to view these animals as friends and these animals as food. But both of those groups of animals have the same capacity to suffer, the same capacity to feel. They both have emotions. They both want to live a good life. They don't want to be killed. They don't want to be exploited. And they actually behave quite similar. I don't know if you've ever seen a cow or a pig that's happy and healthy at a sanctuary where they are not planning to exploit the animal. They play and behave very similar to a dog. I actually had a pet pig when I was a kid. It was a normal farm pig, but it was our pet. He lived outside because he was very big, but he played just like a dog. Cows are big dogs also. Even fish feel pain, fish suffer, fish are sentient. All right, so just some quick numbers. Over 80 billion land animals are killed for food every single year on this planet. It's hard for us to conceptualize what is 1 billion. Think about it like this. If you were to count to 1 billion, one number per second, 24 hours a day, it would take you over 31 years to get to a billion. That's how large a billion is. We are killing over 80 billion per year. And including marine animals, it's in the trillions per year. If we killed humans at the same rate that we kill these animals, we would go extinct very fast. Such an insanely large amount of sentient beings that it is impossible to fathom, really. All right, now some information about the environmental impact. So in order to produce all of these land animal products, we are using around 83% of our global agricultural land. But we are only producing, with that 83% of the land, about 18% of our calories. So consuming animals is an extremely inefficient food system because for every 100 calories that we give to an animal, that we feed an animal, we only get about 12 calories back. So we're using unfathomable amounts of land and resources, water, food, and we are only getting 18% of our calories from all of that. We are already producing enough plant calories to feed the current human population on a plant-based diet and 3 to 4 billion more. The problem is we are using the land and resources wrong. We are wasting them. And the only reason we're able to produce this many animal products is because of factory farming. If we were to do all grass-fed or pasture-raised animal products, we would need at least 5 more planets because it takes up way more space. So people who say that we need to consume grass-fed or pasture-raised animals for regenerating the environment, they don't understand how much land is required, and it's simply not possible. With the current demand, the current consumption of animal products would have to drop by like 90% for that to happen or more. We simply don't have the space. A plant-based diet requires 75% less land, around 75% less land. If you didn't understand, the reason why it takes so much land to produce animal products is not just because of the land with the animals, but also because of the massive amounts of plant food that is grown just to feed the animals. So for example, between 80 to 90% of the destruction of the Amazon rainforest is because of not just cattle farming, but also growing all the soy, all the food to feed the cows. Like I said, a plant-based diet uses or requires around 75% less land. If the world switched to a plant-based diet, or even a significant part of the world, we would be able to free up a massive amount of land. Like if you add the entire land mass of the United States, Australia, China, and the European Union all together. Like that's how big of a piece of land that could be rewilded, that could be freed up by switching to a plant-based diet. So people who talk about regenerative agriculture using animals are not just unaware of how much land that requires, but they're also ignoring the fact that these lands could be rewilded, which would be significantly better for the environment than their regenerative agriculture. I could go on and on about this topic as well, but let's go on to the health category now. The number one killer, health-related killer of humans, the number one disease that kills the most humans is cardiovascular disease, also known as heart disease. This is our number one killer. At this point in the world of nutrition science, it has basically been confirmed that cardiovascular disease is caused by the consumption of animal products. Animal products are extremely high in saturated fat. All dietary cholesterol comes from animal products. Plants don't have cholesterol. Animal products cause atherosclerosis, a buildup of plaque in the arteries. This leads to heart disease. This leads to things like heart attacks, strokes. It even messes with blood vessels that connect to the brain, around the brain, the head. Remember, it's all connected. And that can also cause dementia, Alzheimer's. In the case of type 2 diabetes, saturated fat messes with insulin receptors, which make it so that glucose cannot get into the cell, which then causes type 2 diabetes. Nutrition science is a topic that I have spent a lot of time on, a lot of time learning about, studying these past years. There are so many things I could talk about. The deeper you go into it, the more complex it gets. But to kind of summarize and simplify, at this point in nutrition science, we have overwhelming scientific evidence showing that people who follow a plant-based diet have significantly better long-term health outcomes and significantly lower rates of disease long-term than people who consume animal products. So our top diseases, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, Alzheimer's, and the list goes on, are heavily linked to the consumption of animal products and also linked to a lack of fiber consumption. It's interesting that there's this obsession with protein. Most people don't even know how much protein they really need and that they're actually consuming way more than they need. Protein deficiency is not an issue in the modern world for people who are not in survival situations. What is really the number one issue that people should be focusing on is a fiber deficiency. Most people are very deficient in fiber. Fiber only comes from plants, with the exception of oils, which are refined. But excluding oils, fiber comes from plants, not animals. Most people eat under the recommended amounts of fiber, which are already low compared to our ancestors. People love to talk about our ancestors eating meat, blah, 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 hunter-gatherers. Most of our ancestors ate way more plant-based than people do today. Prior to factory farming, animal products were not as abundant and easily accessible as they are now. Hunter-gatherer tribes usually consumed 4 to 10 times more fiber than the average person today. Only people who eat a whole foods plant-based diet, like many vegans do, are getting close to that amount of fiber. Our ancestors did not eat animal products every day, and in many cases, not every week. And in some cases, you were lucky to get it once a month. People in the southwest part of the US and down through the land that we now call Mexico ate primarily corn, beans, and other plants. If you go to the Museum of Natural History in Mexico City, you'll see a lot of descriptions like that. Like, these people ate corn, beans, chilies, squash, and meat was scarce. You see that like multiple times. In South America, in the Andes, they ate potatoes, corn, and beans, primarily. I'm not saying exclusively, I'm saying predominantly, okay? Their diets, they were not vegan, they were not exclusively plant-based, but they were much more plant-based than the modern person today. The longest living populations that we have documented ate predominantly plant-based diets. Diet is not the only component of a healthy life or health, but it is a huge one. I'm not going to be putting scientific studies linked to this video because I'm talking about so many things. There would be so many. That's so much work. I'm not doing all that, especially when I know that most people don't even look at them. But if you're curious about any of this stuff that I'm saying and you want to look it up and research it yourself. God, I can't even talk. Please do. Like, I highly recommend it. Like, this is all accessible information. So please research this if you are interested. There's a great documentary called Game Changers. It's about vegan athletes. It's about how athletes are able to perform just as well and in some cases better on a plant-based diet. The documentary is called Game Changers. I highly recommend it. There are many documentaries about health, the health components of a plant-based diet. There are also environmental documentaries that I forgot to mention, like Cowspiracy, Seaspiracy. There are health documentaries like What the Health. There are a lot. If you just search vegan documentaries, Google, AI, whatever, there are a lot. All right, so I think that's all that I'm going to say now, talking about the three pillars, the basic introduction and general information that I wanted to give you before getting into debunking the common arguments against it or the questions or concerns. Now I'm going to get into part 2, which is about that. I just asked ChatGPT to give me 20 of the most common arguments against veganism. It's not all of them. I'm sure that there are others that are not on this list that I would also have an answer to. But I'm just going to go through this list and say how I would respond if somebody said this to me in real life, if I were doing activism, if I was on the street doing activism, having conversations with people, if I'm talking to friends or family members or whoever, this is what I would say. So the first one is humans have always eaten meat. So this is an appeal to tradition. So it's not a good argument because just because something is a tradition doesn't mean that it's ethical. You could say, oh, well, it's a tradition that the role of the woman is to serve the man, or humans have children when they're 15, or whatever. You know, you could say anything is a tradition and therefore it's okay. Obviously, that does not hold up logically. Next one, we're omnivores, it's natural. Okay, so this has multiple parts. So on one hand, it's kind of an appeal to nature. So a lot of people like to say it's natural. It's the most natural about a lot of things, not just this topic. But the appeal to nature fallacy, it doesn't work because something is not ethical or correct just because it is natural. Something is not good just because it's natural. There are animals who do horrible things that we find unethical. For example, lions kill babies. They kill the cubs of other lions. Animals kill each other. Animals violate each other. Humans are different because we have something called moral agency. We have ethics. We are able to question our actions. We are able to consider if what we're doing is ethical or not. Other animals don't have that capacity, or at least they're not showing it. So yeah, if you look at nature, you'll see a lot of murder and sexual violation and a lot of things that we find unethical. So therefore, natural doesn't equal right. Also, about saying that we're omnivores, it served our survival to be opportunistic omnivores, to learn how to cook food and to be able to eat a large variety of things, to be able to cook these tubers, these potatoes, all these starches, to be able to access these other sources of glucose to fuel our bodies, our brains. Every cell in the body runs on glucose. The brain runs on glucose. This is like gasoline for the body, for the human body. So glucose comes from fruits, but it also comes from like rice and potatoes and starches, carbohydrates. So cooking and being able to eat meat and a large variety of things to deal with scarcity, food scarcity and survival situations was very beneficial to us to get where we are today. But just because we are able to eat other things to survive does not mean that that's how we thrive. So there's a difference between survival and thriving. So thriving is when you're actually eating not just food to survive, but the best things for the health of your body long term. So we can survive on animal products, but long term, we thrive on plant-based diets. All right, the next one, plants feel pain too. All right, so we already discussed how plants are not sentient. They don't have brains and central nervous systems. People like to pretend to be very spiritual and we don't know. Maybe they feel stuff and we just can't tell. We don't know. So you're telling me that pulling a potato out of the ground is equivalent to taking a knife and slitting the throat of a pig. Those are equal. Most people would react to both of those in the same way. How about another idea? What if your house was on fire and you could only save your house plant, your little plant that you have in your house plant, or your dog or your cat? You had to choose only one of those. Who would take the house plant? Okay. So people who say plants feel pain are just silly and looking for excuses. But also, if you're really concerned about plants, by eating animals, you are actually killing more plants than if you just ate plants because of all the plants that are grown to feed those animals. Like I said, a plant-based diet uses 75% less land and significantly less plants are killed in the process. And less land usage also means less destruction of wildlife, which affects wild animals and plants. Any way you look at it, whether you look at it from just a simple numbers, mathematical, how to kill the least amount of plants, that is to eat a plant-based diet. Or you look at it from the biology class 101, plants don't feel pain, it leads to eating a plant-based diet. Next one is vegan diets are unhealthy. So you could eat nothing but French fries, just fried foods all day long, and you could eat one food all day long and nothing else and say that you're vegan or that you eat a plant-based diet. But that's not the same as someone who eats a healthy, whole foods, well-planned plant-based diet with tons of different plant foods. So that's why plant-based diet doesn't automatically equal healthy. It depends on what the plant-based diet is. And a lot of people who start eating a plant-based diet are not educated on how to eat a plant-based diet. And so they often don't eat enough, or they don't eat enough of certain foods or nutrients that they need. And also, eating a plant-based diet doesn't make you immune from ever getting sick or ever having any health problems. Health is a very complex thing. There are many factors. What is the best plant-based diet for you might not be what is the best plant-based diet for me. So there are a lot of factors. It is an extreme oversimplification to just say like any plant-based diets are healthier or any plant-based diets are unhealthier. A healthy, well-planned plant-based diet has the potential to be a lot healthier than whatever you're currently eating with animal products and whatever, but it all depends on what you eat. And also, another thing I forgot to mention in the health component is that the major dietetic associations of the United States, Canada, Europe, they have stated that a well-planned plant-based diet is healthy for all stages of life, from birth to pregnancy to old age, all stages of life. Every nutrient that you need, you can get on a plant-based diet. The next one is eating meat is part of my culture. So this is similar to the tradition one. It's funny, I've done activism in different countries. I've talked to people in many parts of the world, so many countries and different cultures. And everybody always says, meat is a big part of my culture. Everybody always says, I grew up eating meat every day. In my culture, we eat animal products every day. We eat them all the time. Everybody says that, or almost everybody. So your culture is not any different I also grew up eating animal products and meat every single day. Okay. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's just the modern industrialized way of eating that most of the world is doing now. But same thing with the tradition one. The fact that something is cultural doesn't mean that it's okay. Doesn't mean that it's ethical. You could say, in my culture, it's okay to hit your wife. Domestic violence is normal in my culture. It's okay. You can think about some of our ancestors who were sacrificing people to the gods, these human sacrifice rituals, saying, it's our culture, it's our religion, it's who we are, we can't change it. Culture does not dictate morality. Neither does the law. The law doesn't dictate morality. There have been many unethical things throughout our history that were legal. There still are things like this. The next one is you need meat for protein, B12, iron. So this is completely false. You can get all the protein you need from plant-based sources. They have done studies comparing plant protein and animal protein, and as long as the people were consuming equal amounts of protein, it didn't matter if it came from plants or animals. The results were the same in terms of gaining muscle, etc. Most people just don't know very much about plant protein, and they think that it's going to be difficult. It's very easy. There are tons of very muscular bodybuilding people who get all their protein from plants. I am clearly not one of them. I am somebody who does not prioritize building muscle, but plenty of people who do are plant-based. So if you're concerned about this, I recommend following on social media vegan athletes, vegan bodybuilders, very muscular vegans who show like everything they eat in a day. There are tons of these people on the internet. All you got to do is follow them and you can try to eat like them and boom, there you go. But you also got to do their workout routines. The thing with B12, B12 comes from bacteria in the soil. A lot of animals are actually not naturally getting B12 these days. They're actually supplemented because of their unnatural lifestyles. So when you get B12 through animal products, a lot of the time it's because the animals were supplemented. So as a plant-based eater or vegan, you can just take a B12 supplement directly. So instead of supplementing the animal, you just supplement you once or twice a week. Take a little B12 supplement. It's super easy. Supplementing is not equal to medication. Supplementation and medication are different. So medication is like if you have a problem and you need to take pharmaceutical drugs, you need to like medicate yourself because you're in pain or you have a problem that you don't know how to fix. So you need to like medicate yourself so that you are able to get through the day. Supplements are different. Supplements are just basically isolating and adding certain nutrients to your body, to your diet in order to optimize your nutrition. So you can supplement through the form of food. It doesn't even have to be taking a little tablet or pill. It can be through food. You can sprinkle some ground flaxseed on your food to get omega-3 ALA. Like you don't have to take a pill. Supplementation is just about adding nutrients. And I don't think that there's any person who is passionate about studying nutrition science who doesn't supplement. Supplementing is not something you do because you're sick. It's something you do because you're healthy, because you prioritize your health. I'm somebody who tries not to take a lot of stuff from pharmaceutical industries. A lot of that stuff has very negative side effects, but supplementing B12 doesn't have any negative side effects. I also like to supplement a vegan vitamin D3. It has helped my skin a lot. Supplementing is great. Honestly, it changed my life for the better. And a lot of people who eat animal products are also deficient in a lot of things and should be supplementing, really. There are people who eat meat who are deficient in B12 and other things. And then the other thing was iron. Yeah, iron's super easy to get on a plant-based diet. There are many sources of iron, and it's good to eat things that are high in vitamin C with your iron. Just a little pro tip, because it helps boost iron absorption. So for example, if I'm going to eat my lentil tofu, very high in iron, I will put squeeze some lime or lemon on top. Vitamin C, amazing. The iron in plants is called non-heme iron, and the iron in animal products is called heme iron. the body is amazing at regulating the absorption of non-heme iron from plants. So if you need iron, it will absorb it. If you have enough and you don't need more, it won't absorb it so that you don't have too much. Whereas with iron from animals, heme iron, your body doesn't have that regulator. So people actually get too much iron. So yeah, if you're concerned about any of the specific nutrition stuff, I highly recommend consulting plant-based nutritionists or doctors on the internet, but also in real life. Look to see if there are plant-based nutritionists in your city and wherever you live. You can also get blood tests done. You can look at your levels of, nutrients and stuff. It's very easy. I only supplement 2 things, and it's not a difficult thing. It's not rocket science. Okay, the next one is veganism is expensive, or eating a plant-based diet is expensive. This is crazy to me that people think this, but they think it because of certain substitute products. So they might see some vegan cheese or meat or something on the menu or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's expensive. But that's not necessary to eat as a vegan. And it's usually not the bulk of what we eat. So actually, the cheapest foods are things like rice, beans, potatoes, pasta, bananas. These are vegan foods. And actually, they did a study in Oxford University, and they confirmed that a plant-based diet is actually around 30% cheaper. Because, like I said, a lot of the food we eat are these super cheap staple foods. Obviously, if you buy super processed products at the grocery store, or you go to certain restaurants, of course, it's going to be expensive. Just like animal products can be. Animal products can be very expensive. Certain restaurants are very expensive, but that doesn't represent what you eat every day at home, what you cook at home, So it's the same thing with plant-based diets. There is very expensive plant food, and there is very affordable, very cheap plant food. And most of the essentials, most of the basics are cheap. Another one people say is God put animals here for us to eat. Okay, so the religious thing. There are a lot of things I could say in response to this. Hello, my camera died. So this is a new day. This is the day after. I'm wearing the same shirt, but in short sleeve form. This is the Anonymous for the Voiceless shirt. This is a vegan activism group all over the world. You'll see this group. And I also have my sweatshirt that I got in Medellin, Colombia. The people who sell like vegan clothes and stuff. I got my sweatshirt. It says, Los animales no son comida. And I wear this all the time. So to pick up where we left off. Yeah, so the God thing. God put animals here for us, whatever. These entitled religious people, basically. It just screams entitlement. That is a great word in English, by the way, if you don't know this word. Entitlement or entitled. I struggle to find a good translation of that in other languages. It's a really good word. So yeah, people feel entitled, like they own animals and they can do whatever they want to them. And yeah, I mean, we could go back and forth about religious texts all day long and what Jesus was all about and all that. But when I'm on the street and I'm doing the activism and we're standing there and we have the screens, we're holding like laptops and TVs that are showing what happens in slaughterhouse footage. And so we're standing there on the street and we're looking at that, we're watching it. And I just turn to these people and I say, is this what your God wanted? Do you think that this is what God wanted? And they're watching like cows, like resisting getting put into the kill floor. Like they don't want to go in there because they smell the blood and the fear and they know. And then they shoot the cow in the head, but it doesn't kill them immediately. So they have to do it again and again. And sometimes the cow's not fully dead and they cut him open with a knife. And they're looking at stuff like that. And I'm like, does your God want this? Because if your God wants this, I'm going to need you to get away from me. That sounds like Satanism to me. That sounds like some satanic religion. So yeah, there are also passages in the Bible saying like, I don't know, Genesis is basically vegan. Like there's a lot of veganism stuff in religion. There's also the documentary Christspiracy, which is kind of uncovering some hidden truths about Jesus and how he was probably actually like an animal rights activist and the translations were wrong and whatever. But it doesn't matter. It's just like, look at what's happening. Does that look like thou shalt not kill to you? No, it's not rocket science, people. And then, they always will go back to yeah, but there's a humane way to do it. There's a nice way. But how do you compassionately murder someone who doesn't want to be murdered, who doesn't need to be murdered, when you can just eat something else and everybody's fine? You're fine. It's not a necessity. So yeah, there's no such thing as humane slaughter. And then people will try to bring up halal, like places where there are Muslim people. They will bring up halal, like, oh, I only eat halal meat. Some vegan activists have exposed some like halal slaughterhouses and businesses for doing the same practices, maybe even worse than the standard industry. So halal doesn't mean anything, at least in 2025. It makes no difference. Would it be okay if somebody killed and ate your dog and they did it in a halal way? For any of you Muslim viewers out there, that's for you. All right, the next one is, it's my personal choice. People say that. I actually have a tattoo about this. I can't really show it that well, but basically it's two guys and they're like, hey, what's up? And then one guy just randomly shoots the other guy in the foot. And the guy that gets shot in the foot is like, what the hell, man? What are you doing? And the guy that shot him with the gun is standing there like, why are you judging me? It's my personal choice. So the point is that it's not a valid justification to say, oh, it's my personal choice when there's a victim, right? Imagine if there were a sexual predator, like somebody who committed sexual acts of violence on children, let's say a pedophile, and they're like, hey, it's my personal choice. Like, imagine if somebody said that in that situation, When there's a victim, personal choice goes out the window. That's not a valid excuse for anything. Some vegans respond to that argument by saying, yes, it is your personal choice, but why wouldn't you choose the compassionate choice? Why would you choose the violent, horrible choice? The pedophile is technically making a choice to molest the children. Yes, that is their choice, but it's a bad choice. You're still going to jail. Well, hopefully. Another one is predators eat meat, so why can't we? Yeah, people say different versions of this. They say other animals eat meat, lions eat meat, whatever. But once again, this is an appeal to nature. This is saying that anything that happens in nature is valid. We can copy that. And it's silly because we don't use nature to justify anything else, If there's a murderer, like a serial killer, somebody who kills humans, if they go to court and they go up in front of the judge and they say, Your Honor, other animals do it, how would people react, right? So we don't try to live like other animals in any other way. We don't justify our actions based on how other animals live in any other situation, but people want to do it for eating meat, even though the meat that they eat is also even nothing like the way that, like animals in the wild, predators in the wild, they chase down their prey. They jump on their prey with their claws and teeth that are equipped for that. They love the fear of the animal. They love to tear into the animal and eat the raw, bloody flesh right then and there. That has nothing to do with humans in the way that humans buy and prepare their meat. It's nothing to do. Totally different things. And if a human got their meat in the way that another animal did, we would think that human is a psychopath. I'm not talking about going with a gun and shooting an animal. No, I mean like jump on the animal. No, you're not doing that. There's so much evidence that we're not carnivores, but that's, one of many, many things. Sometimes people also say it's part of the food chain. But remember, we are breeding into existence over 80 billion land animals to slaughter every year. And then we're going in the oceans and killing trillions of marine life. And they go into the oceans with these huge nets and they take everything that the net picks up. So maybe they're going for tuna or salmon, but they go in with a net, and in the net, there are dolphins, there are sea turtles, there are all kinds of marine life that get caught up in the net. This is called bycatch. So a ton of the fishing industry, how do I say this? Like a ton of the body count, like the murder count or the murder rate or the number of killings that happen in the fishing industry is actually just bycatch. Anyways, what I'm saying is that none of all of this of what I'm saying, these trillions of animals that are slaughtered every year, none of this has anything to do with a food chain. A food chain is a natural balance of an ecosystem. This mass breeding and slaughter of animals by humans has nothing to do with balancing an ecosystem. It's quite literally the opposite. It is destroying ecosystems. So it has nothing to do with the food chain. If you're using the term food chain as an argument against veganism, you don't know what a food chain is. All right. And then people say things like vegan substitutes are full of chemicals. What about soy? Soy is bad for you, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Just about soy, to clear that up. There is no valid, accurate scientific evidence that has proven that soy is harmful. Actually, there's the opposite. There is abundant scientific evidence proving that soy is actually healthy for us. People are often concerned with the estrogen that's in soy. The type of estrogen that's in soy is not mammalian estrogen. It is phytoestrogen. It is estrogen in plants. So it does not interact in the human body the way that mammalian estrogen does, which is actually found in dairy. So if you're concerned about estrogen, you shouldn't be consuming dairy at all. But you don't need to worry about phytoestrogen that's in products like tofu, for example, or just soybeans in general. Also, people, especially in the Western world, tend to be a little skeptical and scared about things made from soy because it's not like historically or culturally traditional. But in the Eastern world, things like soy and even seitan, which is made from protein isolated from wheat, also known as gluten. Basically, all of these meat substitute things have been common in Asia, in Eastern Asia, for a few thousand years now, a couple thousand years. They've been eating things like tofu and seitan. And yeah, it's totally normal in Asia. It's nothing new. It's nothing ultra processed and scary. And you don't have to eat any ultra processed things as a plant-based eater or as a vegan. You don't even have to consume soy if you don't want to consume soy. It's not a requirement. Personally, I think it's a great source of many nutrients and I enjoy it, but you don't have to. What I'm saying is that there's no reason to be scared of or cautious about things like tofu and tempeh. And yeah, most things made from soy are totally fine. It's a myth, it's fear mongering. Eating meat is heavily tied to masculinity in culture. And also the meat industries have huge power ties with the government and very powerful propaganda. And so all of these things kind of work together so that meat is regarded as like healthy and things like tofu are regarded as unhealthy or whatever, vegan burgers or whatever. But actually, when you look at the health outcome data, even like the most processed vegan burgers at the grocery store are way lower in saturated fat, cholesterol, and their risk of causing heart disease are way lower than just standard beef, for example. So the number of ingredients in a product or whether something comes in a package or not does not actually determine the health of that thing. In the nutrition science world, it's all about the health outcome data. Anyways, there's a lot of misinformation. It's hard for me to not talk for 3 hours about nutrition science because I've spent so much time on this and there's so many things, there's so much misinformation, so many things that people believe that just is so easily disprovable. Another thing people say is, well, I'm just one person. I won't make a difference if I go vegan or whatever, or I don't think we're going to be able to change everybody, blah, blah, blah. But when you actually realize that being vegan is the only ethical option and that it's unethical to not be vegan, then it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. That's like saying, oh, well, if I don't abuse my wife, it won't change the fact that some people in the world are still going to do it. So what's the point? You can't go through life with the mentality of, oh, well, I'm just one person, so what I do or don't do doesn't make a difference. Because if everybody has that mentality, then nothing good happens. The world is just going to be a horrible place. You do what you know is right because it's right, and you don't do what is wrong because it's wrong, not because somebody else is doing it or not. We're not in kindergarten, right? We're not just following what the other kids are doing, right? We have our own system of ethics. How do you think any social justice movements started? They started with a small group of people resisting, boycotting, standing up for what's right, and it grows over time. The number of vegans in the world is growing every year. Don't let people tell you otherwise. It's not true. Every year, more and more people learn about it. More people go vegan and stay vegan. We do have an impact on supply and demand. There are more options, more vegan options than ever before. More people know about it than ever. It is so easy nowadays. There's no excuse. The internet is full of resources. Obviously, it's arguably the easiest to be vegan in cities, but I also lived in a random small town in the Amazon of Ecuador for 4 years, and I was still vegan there. I just cooked my food more and wasn't able to go out to restaurants, basically. But I had, tons of food available at the markets and whatnot on the farms. It's one of those things that if you've never done it before, it seems like it's hard at first, like everything in life that you start for the first time. But then the more you do it, you just get used to it and you learn things and you realize it's easy. And then once you've been doing it for a couple years, you're like, it's a piece of cake. It's super easy. Another thing people say is like, oh, we have bigger problems to worry about. Wars and, people are killing humans and humans don't have rights and people are starving. And yeah, the world is messed up. There are a lot of problems. Humans are facing a lot of problems around the world, and vegans care about those things too. You can care about multiple things at the same time. It's not one or the other. But the unique thing about veganism is that everybody can change the way that they live, the way that they shop for things, the way that they buy and choose what to eat. A lot of times when there are atrocities happening to humans in other parts of the world, we feel like helpless, like we can't really do anything about it. We can't do much to help. But with the animal massacre, with what's happening to the animals, we can individually help. We can be vegan ourselves, and we can also do activism or spread spread the word around the world. The best thing you can do is inform yourself, like I have done, to be able to respond to all the arguments and the questions and everything. But yeah, so that's the cool thing about veganism is it's very empowering because you yourself can actually make a huge change in your life that really helps so much. And even if you don't feel very powerful, you are making more of a difference than you realize. And your actions, whether you can see it or not, they do have a trickle-down effect. They have influence and an impact on other people. In this world where we are so helpless and there's so many horrible things and we feel so helpless, it is so empowering to be able to change what you buy at the store and to be able to change what you consume and to be able to be a light and show other people that this is possible, that yes, you can do this and you can do this well. But also this thing where people say, oh, we have bigger problems to worry about or whatever, or what about this or what about that? This is called whataboutism. So it's when you're telling somebody about a problem and they go, oh, well, what about this? And it's like, well, that's a different topic. It doesn't take away from this topic that we're talking about now, right? The fact that there's a problem over here doesn't take away from the problem over here. The problem over here is still just as much of a problem, regardless of whether this problem is happening or not. Another thing people say is the appeal to futility or the nirvana fallacy, which is, oh, it's impossible to be completely vegan. It's impossible to live completely cruelty-free. Yeah. I mean, just by existing in this world, it's impossible to have no negative impact on anyone or anything or the environment or animals or whatever. But veganism is not about perfection. It's about doing the best that we can. It's very easy and practical to change what you eat. You don't even really have to change what you eat that much. You're just replacing maybe one or two things on your plate with something made from plants that is of a similar amount of calories and nutrients. But you can still eat like a vegan version of all of your favorite foods, or most of them. When I'm in Mexico, I eat amazing vegan tacos, enchiladas, chilaquiles, tamales. Same thing when I'm in Colombia, bandeja paisa, ajiaco, tamales, all vegan versions. Here in Brazil, I'm eating feijoada vegana. When I was in Peru, I had the tallarines a la huancaína con anticuchos, todo vegano. I eat vegan sushi, vegan pizza. They got an all-you-can-eat vegan pizza buffet here in Sao Paulo. The internet is full of vegan recipes, delicious, nutritious, high protein, vegan recipes, versions of all your favorite foods. Veganism is actually growing the fastest among the Black population in the United States. Maybe not veganism, but at least a plant-based diet. There's no such thing as veganism is privileged. Veganism is just for white people or people with money. I already said that it's actually cheaper. Plant-based diets have been common in Asia for a long time now. All right, the last one on the list that I want to talk about is if we didn't eat animals, they'd overpopulate. So this is probably one of the stupidest ones, but yeah, basically the only reason all of these animals exist, these domesticated farm animals, is because we breed them into existence. When the demand for these products goes down, so will the supply, because we will not be breeding as many of these animals into existence. So yeah, sometimes some dumb people on the street will say things like, well, I'm not killing the animal. I just go to the store and buy it. Somebody else does it, and the animal's already dead. They're going to kill the animal whether I buy it or not. These people don't understand basic supply and demand. Every time you go to the store or you go to a restaurant or whatever, and you buy animal products, you are communicating to the industry that there is a demand for that product, and then they will produce more. It sends a message that they need more. So as this message is being sent less and less, they have no choice but to produce less and less, to breed less and less of these animals. And if you're concerned with the farmers or what they're going to do, some farmers have switched over to farming things like mushrooms or plants. All right, so I got through everything on the list. There are more things that people say. I'm sure somebody's going to say something in the comments that I didn't mention in the video, but it's hard to think of every single thing that people say or ask about it. Remember to search for documentaries or resources or anything on the internet. The internet is absolutely full of resources to help you make the transition. Oh, I just remembered another thing that sometimes people say. People say, like, oh, why do vegans make their food look like meats and stuff? So you need to understand that most of us didn't go vegan because we don't like meat, because we don't like to eat meat or we don't like the taste of it. I liked meat. I used to eat meat. I liked it. I was addicted to cheese my whole childhood. I'm vegan because my pleasure, my taste buds are not more important than the victims. And that's what you have to ask yourself. Is my pleasure more important than these sentient beings? More important than these victims? People always say, well, I just like to eat meat so much. I just like to eat cheese. I really like to eat these things. I don't think I can stop. I'm addicted to cheese. I know what it's like to think it's so delicious and to not want to give up that pleasure, or to feel like scared, or like, I don't want to lose that. I don't want to let that go. But you have to ask yourself if that is really more important than these sentient beings. And it helps if you actually confront what is happening. If you actually watch slaughterhouse footage, if you actually watch documentaries like Dominion. Most of us who are vegan today said at one point, I could never go vegan. I could never give up cheese. I could never give up meat. But now that we've been doing it for years and years, we say, not only was it the best decision we've ever made, but that one, we don't miss out on anything. We have incredible food. And nowadays there are incredible substitutes. The taste pleasure experience is not lacking in vegan food. And number two, your body changes over time with what you eat. So I used to think because I was addicted to cheese that I would always be addicted to cheese. But after I didn't consume cheese for a while, when I tried it, I actually thought it was gross. Now, if I accidentally eat anything that has dairy in it, I actually think the flavor is gross. And I used to love it. I used to be addicted to it. And also, we just don't see these things as foods anymore. We see them as animal body parts. If you go to your local meat market, if you live in Latin America, you can go to like a one of those big markets where they have like one side of it is like fruits and vegetables and the other side is like all kinds of dead animals and corpses and body parts. And that side of it smells absolutely disgusting. That side of it is repulsive. The fruit and vegetable side is all beautiful and colorful and smells great. The meat side is absolutely disgusting. That's the reality. And remember that the number one thing that gives food flavor is plants. When we talk about seasoning food, when we make sauces, they are typically plant-based or mostly. Remember that as you change your diet, if your body's not used to eating certain things, it's good to take it slow, to gradually increase the quantity over time. But probably the number one mistake that people make is not eating enough. Plants are less calorically dense than animal products. That means on a plant-based diet, you need to eat a larger volume of food than you would on a diet with animal products. So we get to eat more food, a larger quantity. We get to take more bites. And our food digests faster, so we get to eat more frequently. So for example, someone who eats animal products might make their plate with like a little bit of rice, a little bit of beans, and a big piece of meat. But someone who eats a plant-based diet would probably have a good-sized bowl, pretty much full of rice and beans. And then on top, you have your veggies and your sauces and maybe even some extra protein or whatever you like in your food. But the base is more carbohydrate based. So if you have that plate of meat, rice, and beans, and you say, okay, I'm going to stop eating meat, and you remove the meat, which was the most calorically dense part of the plate, and you replace it with some lettuce, well, obviously you're going to be hungry. Well, obviously you're not going to feel satiated. You need to replace the calories in that. You can't swap out the animal products for low-calorie plant foods. And you can't keep the amount of rice and beans on the plate the same. You have to increase them. You see? So it's very easy to undereat on a plant-based diet if you don't know what you're doing. But it's not complicated. If you want to be successful on a plant-based diet, if you want to be vegan, I recommend that you spend at least the first 6 months, maybe the first year, just eating as much as you want. Anytime you're hungry, eat. And really try to focus on the most calorie-dense plants. I don't recommend doing fasting and intermittent fasting and trying to deprive yourself because you're trying to lose weight or be skinny or restrict your carbs or this or that. No, do not do any of that. Carbs are fuel. That is the gasoline for the body. Every cell runs on glucose. Carbs do not make you fat. It's a myth. Fat makes you fat. It's literally the same word in English. Fat makes you fat. 1 gram of fat has more than double the calories that 1 gram of carbs has. We often eat fat refined or very condensed, low volume. So you're not eating a lot of fiber. So you're actually eating a ton of calories, but you don't feel satiated. So you just keep eating and eating because it's lacking fiber. But if you eat a big meal with lots of carbs and fiber and plants, you're not eating too many calories and you're actually filling up your stomach and feeling satiated. It just digests faster. So you might have to eat more frequently, and that's okay. My number one advice is to not deprive yourself. If you're hungry, eat as many plants as you want. Do not be afraid of plants. Plants are full of fiber, water, vitamins, and minerals. They are healthy for you. The most important thing in the beginning is that you feel satiated on a plant-based diet. So eat as much as you need. A lot of times, as an 8-year vegan, when I go to vegan restaurants, I am disappointed with the portion. I feel that it's too small. I think if I were at home, I would serve myself a larger portion. So I often go to vegan restaurants and then I come home and I make more food. And I never restrict carbs. Also, another thing I want to say that I'm not sure if I said when I was talking about pleasure, what's more important, my taste buds, my taste pleasure, or these sentient beings, these victims. This is a dangerous argument to use for anything, because if you try to justify unethical behavior with pleasure, that leads us down a pretty scary road, if you know what I mean. Think about that child molester. Think about that pedophile who says, well, it gives me great pleasure to do these things to children. Therefore, we must be very careful when trying to justify anything based on pleasure. Also, I live an extremely pleasurable life, and I am vegan. I am all the time just like amazed and blown away by how good my food is. I think I eat better than most people ever, like who have ever existed. I've been privileged to be able to travel around to a lot of different countries, and I've been to Asia, and I'm really interested in food and passionate about it. So I've learned a lot. I've watched so many recipe videos on the internet. I've learned a lot about different ingredients and all kinds of different things to make food super good. I don't think most people who eat animal products are even having as much of a pleasurable experience as I am having. And it takes time to learn some stuff and experiment in the kitchen and whatnot, but it's fun. It's really fun. Trust me. All right, so I'm having a hard time ending this video because I feel like there are 1,000,001 more things that I need to tell you, that I need to say. If you would like me to talk about something that you don't think I talked about in this video, in another video, you can let me know in the comments. This is such a vast topic. I mean, there are so many things to talk about, but I'm very passionate about it, so I love talking about it. I knew since I started my channel that at some point I needed to make a video like this, and I was just kind of waiting for the right moment, and I felt like now is the right moment, the right time. So if you listened to the end with an open mind and an open heart, I really appreciate you so much. I know I always say that, but this time more than ever. If you're thinking, okay, she has good points, blah, 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 I'm going to reduce my consumption of animal products. As a vegan activist, I have to tell you that if something is unethical, if you agree that it is unethical to slaughter these animals, if you agree that animal cruelty is unethical, if you are against animal cruelty, it doesn't make sense to reduce the amount and not completely stop. It's like saying, oh, I'm only racist half the time. I'm only sexist half the time. I'm trying to hit my wife less, not zero. I'm not trying to stop completely. I'm just trying to reduce my violence toward my wife or my children. Think about how that sounds, you know? I'm just trying to reduce my sexual violence. I don't think I can give it up completely, right? I don't think I can get it down to zero, but I think I can only do it on some days and not other days. I think I can reduce it, right? When people say, I only eat a little bit of meat, it's like, is the cow only a little bit murdered? How do you cut a throat just a little bit? So if something is wrong, it's wrong, period, end of story. It's not acceptable if you just reduce the amount of it. Oh, and another thing I thought of, okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to stop the video and then 1,000,000 things are going to come to mind of things that I wanted to say. Another thing is that all of the labeling, all the labels, pasture raised, free range, happy chickens, happy eggs, happy animals, pictures of smiling cows and pigs and chickens, humanely raised, humane, pictures of happy, idyllic farms, humane slaughter, local, small farms, organic, halal. All of these terms are to make the consumer, you, feel better. These terms are not really for the animal. They're for you. They're for your conscience. They're to make you feel like you're not a bad person when you buy these things. They do not protect the animals. They do not help the animals. They do not care about the animals. It is propaganda. So you have the responsibility to inform yourself, to connect yourself with the truth, to stay connected, to see through the veil, to lift the veil, to awaken. And society will try to pressure you in many ways. Friends, family, people may try to pressure you, may tease you, give you a hard time. Remember all of the social justice movements. The first women who fought for women's right to vote were absolutely rejected from society. They were ridiculed. They were beaten. They were arrested. They weren't allowed to see their children. They experienced hell just for protesting for the right to vote, something that we take for granted nowadays, something that we think is so normal. Women were ridiculed and abused for advocating for that. Think about slavery. That was something that was protected for so long. It was absolutely normalized. The slaves were objectified. It was legal. If you tried to fight against it, they might kill you, they might torture you, but still people resisted. Still people escaped, and people helped people escape. Activists in the past, activists in these life-threatening situations had it so much harder than we do today. You can make powerful change just by buying something else at the grocery store, ordering something else at a restaurant. Nobody's gonna punch you or kill you. We have it so easy now to stand up against injustice. In this topic, there are still things in the world where people are risking their lives to stand up to injustice. Yes, absolutely. But in the topic of veganism, and we are able to resist, we are able to boycott, we are able to fight in a way that is not dangerous to us. So all that's to say, there's no excuse. There are no excuses, no excuses. So think about what your higher self would do. Think about what your grandchildren would do or would want of you. It's only a matter of time before it comes so normalized that our grandchildren look back and go, I can't believe they did that. This happened with so many things throughout history. Future generations are going to look at what we did to animals and just be absolutely appalled, disgusted, confused. How could we ever just go along with that? So don't wait for all of society to change. Be the change. All right, I think that's it for today. Thank you, as always, for supporting my channel. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time.